But thank you for taking time out to have a chat. Obviously, we're here to talk about Elevation, which is releasing in the UK very soon. I guess the first question would be, at what stage did you get involved with the project, and what was it about the script that kind of stood out to you as something that you wanted to produce?
I got the script from a manager, um, and having done A Quiet Place, I was familiar with the genre of alien invasion. And I've always loved alien invasion movies. I mean, I think Signs is one of my favorite movies. I love E.T. I mean, it's always something that I kind of gravitate towards. So when I read the script, um, it felt like a really fun movie to make. It just felt fun, and I liked the idea. And once we got George Nolfi, I was very excited. I really wanted to work with George. I had a very, very good experience making this movie with George. I loved it.
Nice. You mentioned obviously A Quiet Place, which again is it's a film set in an apocalypse, and these sort of stories always seem to perform well and entertain an audience and fascinate them. What do you think it is about that kind of story that does intrigue us all so much?
I think the uncertainty, if it could happen, it's not like, I mean, every day I'm actually I'm in Australia right now. We're shooting Anaconda. Um, and even here, you know, in the news, you see UFOs all the time. I mean, it feels like there's always another UFO thing or something like that. And I think that it's close enough to reality, but far enough away that you can kind of enjoy the ride, right? I think that in the back of many people's heads, they believe that there could be UFOs out there, but so it's fun to go on that ride and see what that could be like and not actually have to deal with it yourself.
So, moving on to the setting of Elevation, I think as much as we have seen these post-apocalyptic films before, often they're in like the ruins of cities and stuff, but this is in a very different location. How was it, filming in that location? Because I think it was in a place that hadn't necessarily been used too much in film before.
So the last time I was told that a film shot in Colorado was in the 50s.
Wow.
And it's one of the things I love about George Nolfi. There are a lot of things I love about, but one of them, and by the way, that I loved about our financier of the movie too, because George came on the project and said, we have to shoot this in Colorado. This movie only works in Colorado. I think I can get us into mines that have never been shot. I think I can get us into parks that have not been shot. George had some friends who are politically active in Colorado, and in a very odd turn of events, my classmate from college is the U.S. Senator for Colorado. And so between the two of us, we were able to get these amazing locations. And that was the most fun part about the movie, was that we were shooting places that had never been shot before. And it was so beautiful and breathtaking, to be there. And I will say to you, because since Elevation, I think I've made 5 or 6 movies, and none of them have shot in the United States. Not that it's a bad thing, but it is becoming increasingly more difficult to shoot in the United States, much less in a state that has never really had movies there before. So that, when you talk about the thing that was most exciting to me about the movie, the most exciting thing was to make a movie in Colorado, because I don't know that I'll ever have that experience again.
Mm. And it does, I think it does offer a different, like I said, a completely different look to what's out there. And it's almost like, although it's Earth, it doesn't strictly feel of Earth because it is such a foreign, scenery. I guess that was sort of one of the key factors in differentiating, because obviously, as we said, there are so many others out there. How did you work to make sure that this film had its own voice?
Well, I think that's really George's responsibility, is to set that tone. My job is to kind of keep the plates spinning and not let them break, but he's the one who's putting the plates and putting the whole thing together. And so George always had a perspective of how he wanted to get this movie made and who he wanted to be in it and where he was going to shoot it. I just wanted to be there to help him and watch him do it, because it's really fun to watch George direct and to be around him.
And Anthony Mackie is obviously the film's lead. He's later going to be seen this year fronting the big Marvel film. But I think something that I've noticed, throughout his career is in between these big flagpole titles, he does seem to gravitate towards these more intimate projects. How important do you think it is for stars like him to support work that's not always, the super big blockbusters?
Well, something that I hear a lot is that actors will say, "I'll do one for me and one for them," and I think that's kind of probably. Although Anthony and I have never discussed that, um, I suspect that's probably what he's thinking. But I don't think George did our movie for anything other than that Mackie and George have worked to. This was their third collaboration. And I think Anthony really trusts George, and they have fun together. So it's very comfortable for Anthony to come to work and to collaborate with George. And I think that's why he did the movie. I don't, I think that was the main component. I mean, obviously, he liked the script, but it was George.
And obviously, you've been, producing for a number of years now. What is it, is there a, secret formula to picking, the right script? What does it take to for a script to get your attention?
I wish I could tell you that. Just a feeling that I get, and I'm wrong a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. I'm wrong. There's scripts that I said I don't see that, and the movie goes on to be huge. I think that if I do have a skill set, I think my skill set is recognizing a concept, and it might be because I'm simple in my taste, and so if I can't describe what the movie is in a sentence, I'm not interested in making it for the most part. So, and the best example of that, you brought it up, is the Purge. I mean, one day a week, one day a year, all crime is legal. I saw everything from that. That was James DeMonaco came up with the best concept I think I'll ever hear. But with Elevation, I love the notion that these people could live above that. They could have their own existence. They could have their own existence until they had to go under the line. And that, I love that concept. It's easy to understand.
I mean, talking about the Purge, did you ever foresee, when you got told, that idea that it would then go on to be this multi-film franchise?
I can't express to you enough how little I expected from that movie. I literally, when we were making the movie, we shot it in 18 days, 3 6-day weeks. And at the time I was making it, for the first 2 weeks, I didn't even tell Michael Bay about it. He's my partner, but I would go into the office and I would say I got to leave early, and I would leave the office at 4 and drive to the set of The Purge and work all night, and then come back in the office and try and get sleep here and there. I had such little faith that we could. It wasn't even the script or the cast. It was, who makes a movie for under $3 million that goes out into the marketplace. At that time, that didn't happen. I just didn't understand how we could execute a movie that is basically, at its surface, a home invasion movie.
Yeah.
It's just a straight home invasion movie. What James did that was so smart is he created this world where it was all happening outside the house. So you felt it, but you didn't have to see it. And I did not factor in how effective that would be. So the answer is a resounding no. If someone would have said, we're going to end up making 5 of these, I would have said that, that'll never happen. But here we are.
And what did Michael say when you finally did sort of go, so we've made this film?
Well, he was mad at me, but that's very common. But then when he saw the movie, he loved it. So that's, listen, I've known Michaal Bay since I was 14 years old. We went to college together. I describe it. He's like my older brother who beats me up occasionally. But out of that conflict, magical things happen. It just so, and it works. And that's why, we're still working together. So, but initially I didn't, I can't believe I didn't tell him. That's so ridiculous when I look back on it. Like, how are you going to hide a movie from your partner? But I did. And then, he liked the movie when he saw it. And then the movie almost didn't come out. I don't want to bore you, Kat, but there were like 4 times that Universal said, this movie's too violent, like a school shooting would happen or something horrible would happen. They said, well, we can't release this movie now. We just can't release it. So we went through that 3 or 4 times. It was just unbelievable. And then it came out, and I remember where I was, and I could not believe what was happening. It was the most shocking movie opening that I've ever been a part of. That nothing will ever come close.
And you're saying, that you've done some magical things with Michael, and one of those is obviously, setting up Platinum Dunes. I mean, that's a company that kind of came out of the blocks running. There was that string of sort of like horror remakes. I mean, for myself, that was kind of my sort of formative years of going to the cinema. So, I experienced some of those stories for the first time via the Platinum Dune releases. What was that experience like, working on these beloved properties and then, having them all be, so successful?
First of all, we never went into any of them expecting them to be successful. I never did. I never felt like, well, when we did Texas Chainsaw, people weren't remaking movies at that point. And the only reason that we were doing it is we had the rights. Michael had this deal where he could start a production company because uh, um, Armageddon had been so successful, and then he was doing Pearl Harbor, and everyone wanted to work with him, and he had this deal. And like I said, I've known him for since I was a kid. And Andrew Form, our other partner at Platinum Dunes, Michael had known him because he was Jerry Bruckheimer's assistant on Bad Boys and the Rock. And Michael just said, "Let's put this movie together." And Texas Chainsaw was the first thing that came in, and it was a very, very painful experience to make the movie because I did not know at all what I was doing. Not one thing. I mean, I literally had no idea what I was doing. And Michael would watch dailies, and he would, beat me up because of this or that. But it was film school. And that's what that first movie was. And then when the second movie came, it was a little bit better, but not much better. And I learned how to make movies from him, and he was a great teacher. And so, but we had remakes that didn't work too. It wasn't all good. There's a movie I love making called The Hitcher with Sean Bean. I loved making that movie. That didn't work very well, and that was quite painful. So I don't think I've ever gone into any movie ever thinking that it's going to do well. I just go into every movie hoping that I can be additive in some way, and hopefully we get lucky. That's how it feels, at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it was my sort of like sort of gateway into the genre of horror, which is now an arena that I work in. So, thank you for
Huh.
persevering and making those films. Um, and you mentioned earlier that you're currently shooting the Anaconda again. I am, Anaconda the original was a film I watched probably more times than is healthy for somebody to watch. How is the production going on that, and is it, how is it going to sort of like, be brought up to date, the story?
Well, listen, when Sony when Sony called me, I think it was on the heels of A Quiet Place 2. And Sony said, would you be interested in Anaconda? And I said, sure. I mean, if a studio's calling a producer and saying, would you be interested in this? Most producers are going to say yes. Now, when I did the research and I saw, there were a couple sequels, and, that nothing had really happened with the title in a long time. I realized that we have to do something different. You can't just do another movie with a snake attacking people, because there's no reason to, because I want this movie, this is going to be a theatrical movie. I want people to be excited to leave their home, and we have to give them a reason to leave their home. And Tom Gormican came up with a hilarious idea that, in my opinion, perfectly merges comedy and horror. Um, it's a group of people. Jack Black and Paul Rudd are best friends, and they're going through an experience. And Tandy Newton and Steve Zahn, they're all best friends from when they were kids, and their lives have gotten a little bit boring, and they decided to do something crazy. And so the experience of making this movie has been very eye-opening to me, because I've never made a comedy before. I mean, it's very similar in terms of the rhythm of what you're doing. You have to set up the joke and then pay it off, and scare, you have to set up the tension and then pay it. So that part's very similar, but it's been a very eye-opening experience in a good way to first of all try and merge those two genres, and to work with people who just are inherently really funny. I've just never been exposed to that before. Everyone in our movies, Emily Blunt is funny off camera, but she's, these guys just come up with brilliant stuff all the time. It's just a different muscle or different brain entirely. And so it's been a really, really fun experience for me to be down here and to witness that. And so far so good. We're one third the way through.
And sort of back to Elevation, the film has that it kind of it sort of builds up to a big crescendo and then it ends in a way where it could end there. Or, there is also that hook of, oh, but where's it going next? You're hopeful that maybe there might be the opportunity to further explore this world.
Listen, I would love to. I loved the cast. I love George, as I've said a million times on this call. And so, if I got a call tonight that they wanted to go make another one, I would do it in a second. It was just a great, great experience for me.
Nice. And I guess, sort of, finally, why do you hope people, do go out and support this film? Obviously, it's its own IP, it's not tied to any existing property. Why do you hope that people take the chance on this film?
Well, listen, I think you go to the movie theater to have an experience, a communal experience, and I think that this movie just delivers on the thrills and the fun. It's like a roller coaster ride. That's and so, and I think it just delivers on that. And you go in there and you forget about your problems for 90 minutes and you think about what would happen if you were in that situation. And then you go back to your life. And that's, for me, that the greatest thing in the world is sitting in a crowded movie theater and just hearing people react to something that I was a part of, and having them feel emotional about something that you've worked on for 2 or 3 or 5 years to get it there. So I think people will love the roller coaster ride that is this movie. That's my hope.